And some you're probably familiar with, like claustrophobia, which is the fear of being in confined spaces. Arachnophobia, I know what that is. Fear of spiders. Acrophobia, the fear of heights. Aerophobia, the fear of flying. Glossophobia, the fear of public speaking. Noctophobia, fear of the dark. But there are some that are more unusual, maybe a little more rare, like chaetophobia. Anybody know what that is? The fear of hairy people. Is it up there right there? Guess I can quit asking that, okay. Paleodophobia or something, the fear of bald people. Thalassalophobia, the fear of being seated. Hopefully none of you have that right now, because you'd be stressed out. There's odontophobia, the fear of teeth, and calapriophobia, the fear of words with obscure meanings. And those may sound kind of strange to some of us, but we're all afraid of something. I mean, like I'm afraid of snakes, I'm afraid of heights, I'm afraid of spiders, I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of death. You guys, I mean, I'm not the only one, right? Some of you probably have fears. But fear is something that we all have in common. Maybe you heard about the guy who has the fear of flying, but his business recently forced him into making that long flight to the Far East. Well, as he walked through the airport, he came by one of those kiosks that sells flight insurance, and he thought, oh, why not? And he got some. Well, a little later, he was on the plane, and they served Chinese food. And when he was finished, he opened his fortune cookie, and it said, a recent investment will pay great dividends. But getting serious for a moment, I'd like to ask you, as we start off today, to personalize this idea of fear today, to think about what are maybe the top two or three things in your life right now that you're afraid of, that you dread, that you worry about. Or putting it another way, in what areas of your life right now are you most in need of strength? Strength to face something. Strength to get through something. So I want to give you 10 or 15 seconds to just identify in your mind what are the biggest fears that are pressing in on you right now and or areas where you need strength. So just think about that. List 2 or 3 things in your mind that would be, you'd say, these are the things that maybe worry me, that I'm afraid of, that I need strength in. Well, Psalm 27 says that, and makes it very clear that the best thing, the smartest thing that you and I can do when life gets hard is to lean on God. The Lord is my light and my salvation. The Lord is the strength of my life. Now, what's implied here in both statements and in both questions that follow is the word because. Because the Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? Because the Lord is the strength of my life, of what or of whom should I be afraid? Of course, we all know that's a lot easier said than done. Well, today you're going to hear from somebody who is facing one of the biggest and scariest situations that I know of. And this is not something that happened years ago and it looked really bad, but then everything turned out all right, and now we know how the story ends. This situation is right now, present tense. She doesn't know how things are going to turn out. So this is very real. I introduced her to you last Sunday when she made her singing debut with the band. But right now, I want to bring her up, and I want to talk with her for a moment so you'll really get to know her. Let's welcome again Christine Cooper. Thank you. Here you go.
Oh, these are tall. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Well, if you were here last week, I mentioned how Christine and I have known each other actually for about 30 years, but we just ran into each other a couple of months ago, and which was very amazing that it actually happened that way, because she only went to the rehab place for physical reasons, and I was at rehab for my shoulder, not other issues. And we just happened to be there at the same time, just that one time. But anyway, so I want to start off with asking, I used to call her Christy, she used to call me Rusty, so if we accidentally say that, you know. But I want to start off asking Christine how she first showed up at my youth group, my church, when it was in the Boomer Theater back in the early 1980s.
So I was 12, and a friend of mine, Cynthia Craddock, who is sometimes her sister comes and her mother comes here. And so she invited me to church, and I came. This was in the old Boomer Theater, which is on Asp Street, if any of you are familiar with that. And I guess what I was immediately struck with was that he was wearing jeans, and I think Birkenstocks even back then. And everybody, it was very casual. They were playing rock and roll when I walked in the door, you know, and I was like, these are my people. These are my people. And so there was so much joy. We had a lot of teenagers at that time in the church, and I felt very comfortable with my, you know, of course, my peers. Also at that time, they would introduce the topic of the day by doing a skit. People in the church would come up and do a skit. I think we need to get back to that because that was fun. And so they would do skits, and everything was very relaxing. What struck me the most was just the acceptance, just immediate acceptance from day one. And people came to me and wanted to meet me, and I felt like I was home. And so that was what gave me so much joy. But then puberty kind of hit, and I you know, became the party animal, crazy girl party animal, and kind of went through that stuff, and was not in the church any longer. And so, but that's how we met.
And so what else do you remember from that time? Like how wonderful I was, what a great youth guy I was.
Yeah.
And
So I'm going to tell you all a story.
Conservative I was.
I'm going to tell you all the stories.
She said the other day, she goes, well, I want to tell some stories. I have not filtered these, so I cannot vouch for the truthfulness.
And
of
I don't even know if he'll remember this, but for me it was very vivid, and I'll never forget it. We had a ski trip for, I guess it wasn't for anybody. I don't know if I think it was the youth group. I think it's the youth group who went on a ski trip. I've never skied before. Everyone was so jazzed up and ready to go to this thing. And we all loaded up on the bus and headed to Colorado. And on the way, everyone was talking about their own ski memories that they had. And it occurred to me as we were driving, I was the only person on this bus that had never skied before. And so I said, hey, you guys, I've never skied before. And they're like, no big deal. We're going to help you. We're going to teach you. They talked to me about snow plowing. You know, this is how it's going to be. And I was so excited. So first day of skiing, we get there, get all the gear, get in line, get on a ski lift. And I'm on there with two other people. And I'm like, hey, so I'm seeing as we get closer to where the people come off that there's not a big to-do. People just kind of get off and they start to ski. And I was like, what are we going to do there? And again, they were just like, okay, just really keep your skis straight. And then when we get off, there's a little slope, and you'll just start to go, and we'll ski. And I was like, okay. So we get there, got my skis parallel. I'm doing the thing. I've got my poles. I'm ready to go. We get off, and they are gone. They are like, pew! And there I am. I have no idea how to ski. I made it like 20 feet and probably fell over. Got back up, went about 20 feet, fell over. And I'm kind of, while I'm sitting there in the snow, I'm kind of watching people, what they're doing. We were at Breckenridge, and it was icy. And so here's what ended up happening. I went down the mountain like crouched with my butt on the ground and my feet in the sky. I was that flexible back then, and that is how I made it to the bottom of Breckenridge. That's what I did. And I promptly got to the bottom, took off my skis, got my gear, walked to the gear place, handed it all back, and went, waited for the bus back to the place. And I said, I will never ski again. So next morning we get up, and everybody goes skiing, and I go to the mess hall to get something to eat, and there's Russ, and he's got his notebooks and things with him, his Bible with him, and I'm like, hey, and he's like, what are you doing here? And I said, I will never ski again. And we sat down and we kind of chatted, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do for the rest of the time that we're here. I mean, we were there a long time. It was a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. And he goes, I have an idea. And out of his notebook, he pulls out a piece of paper with all of these check mark boxes on it and things from the Bible in it. And I was like, what is this? And he said, if you do this and follow this and check off all these boxes, you will have read the Bible in 1 year. And I was a voracious reader, and I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I did. I read the entire Bible while we were there. And I would complain to him, about, do I really have to read Deuteronomy? I mean, it's like somebody begat somebody else, and somebody begat this. And I mean, there are good parts in the Bible, and then there are just some really boring parts in the Bible, and that's what it is.
Sort of dry.
But Russ and I had time then to spend just kind of talking about life, not talking even about church stuff. I mean, it's just about life. And that was how I got to know him and see him as a human being, not just my pastor, with a halo around his head, but as a human being. And
no one here. That's not the real
well, we put our pastors kind of on a pedestal, and it was like, he's a person, and a very kind person, and caring person, and that is what I've always carried in my heart. And so that's something that, I mean, I have lots of other stories that I'll tell some other time, but that is something that will be with me forever.
So then after you were part of our church, part of our youth group, and then you got then sort of in high school, different things started happening in your life. Like I said, you kind of drifted away. And then, so what, you went to college, you had a career. Tell everybody what happened, like basically after high school, high school and stuff.
In a nutshell, I did some weird things. The first thing I did was I went to Warner Robotech over here, and that's what they called it at the time. And I took auto mechanics. They wouldn't let me take it in 9th grade because they knew I was college bound. They wouldn't let me take somebody's seat, So as soon as I graduated, I signed up and finished the class in a year. So they hired me, and so I taught auto mechanics for a while.
So you could work on my car.
I could. I could do that. I don't know if I'm going to, but I could.
Yeah,
okay. So I did that, and I really enjoyed that. But I was going to college at the same time, and for a long time I thought I was going to go into psychiatry. And so my first degree is a BS in biology, in psychology. And so then I got a job working inpatient psychiatric units here in the city, and that was very exciting, really interesting, very exciting. But it also showed me that I didn't want to do psychiatry, that if I was going to go to medical school, I wanted there to be more that I was going to use with my, education. And I ended up deciding on OBGYN, obstetrician gynecology. That suited me because I was able to still do a lot of psych, working with women. I still do a lot of psych. I was able to do surgery. When they finally put a knife in my hand, I discovered that I had a knack for that, and so that worked out very well for me. And then also, I just love working with women, and of course the babies. Yeah, everybody thinks about the babies as being so awesome, and it is. But you have to understand that when you are the obstetrician, it's also every time it's very, very stressful. Things can go bad very, very quickly. So it's different, and it's a different experience for me than it is for the families and things like that. But I did that. I was in Chickasha for many, many years, and then do you want me to? And then what happened was September of 2016, just last year, I found out I have advanced ovarian cancer. For those of you who don't know, it's an extremely deadly disease, and I can talk about this some more here in a little bit. But I found out I had cancer, closed my practice, and my mother's entire life changed at that time.
Yep, her mom's been
my
coming
mom's
with her. Yep,
sitting right there.
Since you started coming, and And so you're going along, your life is fine. I mean, not that I want to say I wouldn't have ever thought that you would become a doctor when you were 12, okay? Because I could really see that potential. Anyway, she was 12, I don't know. But anyway, so you did this, and I mean, your life was on you were in a great situation, you know. You're probably making good money, you're helping people, you're making a difference, you have, you know, freedom, your life is set on a really, really great track. And doing what you do, you have probably told many people really bad news, really, really hard things for people to hear about their health, about their children, you know, and so forth. And so you had told people probably before that they had this very disease that you then found out that you had.
Yes.
So when you found out that you had it, you knew immediately the gravity of the situation. And what were the first feelings and thoughts you had when you heard them pronounce this is what you have? What were the first things that went through you?
I'm an only child, and I have no cousins, and my first thought is leaving my mother alone, and not being able to. You know, I worked hard my whole life to do what I did as a physician, and you make the money, and I did all the right things and save money, and because my thing is traveling the world. That's just kind of my thing, and I set up my whole life to be able to then do those things, and I knew that I had a death sentence, and it changes everything. How you see everything in your world becomes very small, because you understand that there's, you know, most of the things you worry about, think about, care about don't matter in the context of when you are going to pass away. When that happens, everything becomes about people, and of course, for some people, it becomes very much about God, about prayer and God for strength and such. For me, and I don't know if other people will agree with this, and that's okay, but for me, my God is about acceptance, non-judgmental, and a positive force. I don't have a scary God. You know, people preach different ways and interpret the Bible in different ways. For me, my God is a loving, caring, positive force, and has asked me to put good things out into the world. And that has been my greatest struggle. It's actually not the cancer. I'm in a place where very quickly I came to terms with the fact I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of suffering, because I have suffered so much with chemotherapy in a way that I don't even know if I can verbalize. But there's a lot of suffering. And did that answer your question?
Yeah. So you've told me that sometimes you can't feel your feet,
right,
your hands.
All the time. The chemotherapy, it's funny, the cancer, I had no symptoms except for one, and that was I had pain right here, and I knew it was my gallbladder, and it was when my mom kept saying, go to the doctor, and I was like, Mom, it's just my gallbladder. When it gets bad enough, we'll get it taken out. I was on a trip in Alaska, and I had 2 episodes of just pain that I can't even describe. I mean, I couldn't move. And I thought my gallbladder was bursting, so much so that after we got to the airport in Oklahoma City, we drove straight to Norman Healthplex, and I was ultrasounded and such, and it turned out my gallbladder was great, but there was cancer growing on one of the ducts, and that's what gave me the symptoms. I actually ended up having cancer it completely in my abdomen, as well as in my chest, and around my heart, and so with ovarian cancer, it is fatal. Usually what happens is where I'm at right now, you go through some very, very difficult chemotherapy. The treatment is so aggressive. because if you don't, you're going to die. There's kind of no choice. You have no choice. You're either going to not treat it and die sooner, or you're going to treat it. And so the chemotherapy is, I had to have that, and it just robs you of so many things. The type of chemotherapy that I have is very destructive to nerve cells, and so I don't feel my hands or my feet. I think maybe some of you saw when I was singing last week, I had to have help going down the stairs. Going up is usually easy, but going down is very hard because I don't have sensation. Fortunately, I do have some medications that help me with that, but it's probably something I'm going to have forever, and I will gladly take that to be alive. I will tell you, because all of this is hard and sad. There's probably nobody in this room that has not been touched by cancer. Either you've had it yourself, you've had a family member, or you've had friends. The cancer itself was not difficult. The chemotherapy was very, very hard, and the prognosis that I have is that usually people do very well. I did very well. Currently, I'm cancer-free based on my CT scans, but it will come back. And when it comes back, we really don't have much treatment for it, and then it becomes fatal. And so my 3-year survival rate right now is 50% chance that I'll be alive in a few years. But something great happened that I want to tell you about last week that you don't even know about.
I saw it on your Facebook. I don't completely understand it, but
okay. I can do this in a nutshell. So some of you may have seen in the news that last week the FDA approved a vaccine, a type of vaccine that can be given for leukemia patients, specifically leukemia patients. And what happens is, and what happened with me during my surgery, I was open from here to here. They removed everything but my liver, my bowel, and my bladder. And so they had a team come up from Texas. They got about a pound of my tumor and took it back to Texas. And then they got a bunch of my blood, and they still get my blood. And they used my white blood cells, which are the things that our immune system, white blood cells, and they taught my white blood cells to fight my cancer, just like you can teach it to fight infection. And then they inject that back into you. And so they have now gotten that for leukemia. They've also developed those vaccines for a few niche little cancers. And I'm currently in a study where I'm receiving injections every month in hopes of this, but I don't know if I'm a control, meaning I'm just getting a placebo versus I'm really getting my vaccine. But I know they made my vaccine. And the hope is that if in this study they can show that enough people are doing well, they'll stop the study and they'll just start giving us the drug. And so once the FDA has something come through like it did last week, usually they work a lot faster to get the other ones through. And so I'm very hopeful. I'm very, very hopeful. Currently, it is my only hope for survival. And it doesn't cure the cancer. You just live with the cancer. But you live longer, and that's what I want.
So you're 47.
Mm-hmm. I'm 47.
47 right now.
There was something I kind of wanted to maybe say about why I'm here and I came back to the church. So I was in physical therapy and I saw Russ and we said hi, and probably within the 2 sentences I was like, do you have a church? And he said, yes, I do have a church. And I asked you about it and you told me a little bit. And I came here that next Sunday and I walked through those doors, and I'm telling you, it was like coming home. And how much I appreciate Russ, but how much I appreciate all of you, because I know if you are here, you understand and you get it. The rock and roll music doesn't scare you and freak you out like it does some people. This is not church. You don't do this in church. For me, this is church. And that I know you're a people that understand what it is to just accept people as they are and who they are, and that we don't care what they wear. We don't care if they're rich or poor. We don't have formal, setups, and we joke a lot. And you are my people, and this is where I belong. And I'm so forever grateful, no matter what my future holds, that I have found Russ and all of you again, because on my darkest days, during my chemotherapy, when you are in that moment with God, then there's no one else. And you're saying, I'm not sure I can do this anymore. I'm just not sure I can do this anymore. And you're in that space. You know what I thought about? It was always people. It was never the things I had lost, my career, my 2 homes that I had in Chickasha, my belongings, even my ability to travel. I was willing to give all of that up to have connections to people. And I don't know if you guys have ever made deals with God. Does anybody ever do that? If you do this, God, I'll do this. But I did have a few of those talks. And if I was to survive, even if it was just for a short period of time, my time is going to be spent with people, meeting new people, and helping people understand my cancer and how, I forgot an important part about my cancer. I have a special cancer. Do you all remember when Angelina Jolie was in the news about getting her double mastectomy and hysterectomy? Because she has an inherited gene, a defective gene. I carry that gene. My mother carries that gene. So we both, my mother's had hysterectomy and mastectomy. I'm going to have my mastectomy sometime soon because you get breast cancer later. It's a great, great cancer. It's a gift that keeps on giving. And so I'm so happy to be here. I hope all of you feel the comfort being here, and that you also feel like these are your people. And when Russ spoke last week about division and gossiping and how those things inside the church can really hurt you and hurt the church. And I want to encourage everybody to think about all of us as being one family, and that we have to take care of each other. And like the deal that I made with my God is I want to put goodness out into the world, and that's a struggle every day, every day. Because I can be very self-centered, about things that I want and whatnot. But putting good out into the world, and it's all about people. And I hope that any of you that might want to get to know me or spend time with me or whatever, I have a lot of time on my hands now.
Yeah, you're retired.
And my job now is that I go around and speak at different doctors' offices to train them and teach them about this inherited form of cancer, because it can be tested for. And so I teach them about that. And so I hope someday it will help other people, no matter what happens to me.
Let me just ask you this to sort of wrap things up. What are some things that you have found since last September to the present that have given you strength to face uncertainty and to deal with the pain and the suffering that goes with this? What are some things that have actually provided you some real strength?
Part of it is my innate personality. I'm very driven, and I'm very tenacious. Pardon me. And so there was a part of me that was, at the age of 47, I couldn't consider dying. I mean, it was just like, that is not an option right now. Later that changed during chemo. I kind of, and I came to terms with the death part. It's about wanting to spend time with people. It's about those relationships. Those helped give me strength. And my personal some people are very open and want to scream from the rooftops about their relationship with God. For me, it has always been a very personal, private thing, and so it's a little more difficult for me to talk about that. But there are those times when it's just me and God, and those are times that I was able to, I guess, find strength is probably the best way to put it. Had a lot of conversations, and they always bring me back to faith, trust, faith, and then I came to terms with, if I die, it's okay. That's okay. And so I'm here to deal with what I can control, because I can't control that, and I've given that all up. Dying is something that is not going to be my choice, and what will happen will happen. So I want to deal with what I can, and that is, I can control what I put out into the world, in the universe, and I can control who is going to be in my life and who isn't, and what I'm going to do to help other people. Because those are all the things that really matter. None of the rest of it really matters. Those are the things that matter. And I don't think it's an accident that you and I ran into each other.
I don't think so. So to people here who are going through different things, whether it's the loss of a loved one or relational conflicts in their lives that tear them apart or whatever, what would you say from what you've gone through now? What would you say to them?
I think we all have different kinds of struggles, like little struggles and then gigantic struggles, like facing death or whatnot, or like divorce, big things like that. It's first, you need to trust in your faith. You need to trust in your faith. You need to trust in yourself. That I don't want to say that things will always get better, because that's not really accurate. But that you are strong enough to face whatever decisions you make and the hardships that you have. And the biggest thing I would say is reach out. I tried to do some of my hardest days, by myself. But the truth is, when I let my friends in and I let my mom in and I let people help me, that is what ended up lifting me up. And you need to look to the people that you care about, and I would say that, like, there are people in this room. These are those people. Hopefully they have good friends too, and you need to be one with your faith, whatever that is, and whatever that looks like. That you need to be connected that way to your universe that way.
I think sometimes we wear ourselves out, like with my little car situation. We get all bent out of shape about stuff that really, in the big picture, is insignificant. And then we need to save up all of our energy for those things that are truly hard.
Can I give you a quick example? Yeah. Of I was on like day 6 or so of a chemo treatment, which is some of the worst days, and I could barely get out of bed and I could barely eat, and my mom was getting ready to go somewhere. I didn't even remember where it was. And she walked in my room, and she was very, very concerned and upset. And she showed me what she was wearing. She was like, "Is this going to be okay if I wear this? Blah, 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 blah." And I just looked at her and I said, "I have cancer. I don't give a crap what you wear," And we both just started laughing, at just the absurdity of it all. But so you're correct. It gives you a lot of perspective. That the things to not waste your energy on those. I can't tell you how many days I laid in bed thinking about so much wasted time in my life. Wasted time.
Yeah, we make major things out of minor things, and then when the major things come along, we don't have the reserves to deal with it, because we spend so much time in negativity and complaining about things that are
Yeah.
that are not that big, that we need to say for ourselves and for other people around us who are going through stuff.
Yeah.
Who need our energy, who need our love and stuff. Well, I appreciate you coming up and doing this. I know this is hard to talk about, and because in some ways you're a very public, just lay it all out person. In other ways, you're kind of private. So I appreciate you doing this, and I hope for all of us as a church family, we'll welcome Christy and her mom and other people who come in, and we don't know what's going on with the person sitting next to us. A lot of times in church we have no idea. Shoot, I'm sorry. Shoot.
And we do have people here that are suffering. We do have people here in this room that are suffering with big, big things. And we have to reach out to them, and we have to help them. We all, I don't want to say we all have a responsibility. I don't like that word. But everyone here can reach out. We all have something to offer, even if it's just a hug or a smile.
Well, I joke around a lot, and I like to have fun. Well, like I mentioned earlier, I'll be in Norman 40 years this September the 1st. We'll mark 40 years that I've been in Norman. And I've had a lot of fun, and I've met a lot of people. But there's a lot of hardships that people go through.
And I know you hear about a lot of that.
I do, and I'm not very good at absorbing that without it affecting me. But I'm glad that we were able to renew our friendship. I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate you getting up in front of everybody and willing to share from your heart like you did.
Absolutely.
So why don't we have our closing prayer. Lord, I pray that you would help us to recognize that you are truly sovereign, that you truly have control over all things. We don't understand why you allow certain things to happen. But Lord, we ultimately trust you. There's just not a better way than to trust you. And so, God, I pray for everybody here that's going through difficult situations, maybe scary, truly frightening things that other people don't know about, fears about the future, hurts in the past that they can't get over. And that, God, we would be a united church family. That we wouldn't let little things distract us, come between us, but that we would really look at the big things, the big picture of life, relationships and our faith and eternity and enjoying the gift of life and being willing to suffer in order to gain something better. Lord, I'm grateful for Christine and her life, and I pray, God, that you would be with her and her mom as they deal with something that is hard for many of us to imagine. And that, God, as a church family, we would love them and care about them and lift them up and pray for them. So, Lord, we're thankful for the time to, open up the Scripture and just try to put faith in those words that since the Lord, because the Lord is my light, because he is my salvation, he is the strength of my life, I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to be filled with fear, negativity, and Lord, it's hard to live that. I pray that today has been a challenge to everybody and an encouragement to everybody to major in the major things, to keep the main things, the important things in our lives. Lord, thanks for this time together. Pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, you guys, thanks for coming today. We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing it.
All right, guys, next time.